Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here to share some information about the Phillip Jackson Freedom School grant to ensure that organizations in the 30th district are successful with their applications, and making sure you get some information that will help navigate the process as well as demystify the process. So thanks again for joining us. I am State Senator Adrienne Johnson. State Representative Rita Mayfield, she will also be joining us in about 10 minutes. So we'll get started with the program. What we'll do is, if you want to share the screen, Mackenzie, we'll put up the agenda and then we'll get started with the presentation. And while we're waiting for the presentation to get loaded, just want to say we have your email and we will make sure to send you the presentation shortly after our session here. So thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it. We have a curated group of organizations from Waukegan and North Chicago area, from public schools, from school districts, some community-based organizations and other organizations that provide educational enrichment for our children. And so we'll go into a little bit more information about the Freedom Schools. And while we're waiting for the presentation to load up, I just want to share with all of you that this is the first ever state-funded grant, and that is about $17 million for Freedom Schools. And this is the result of the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus's four-pillar agenda, specifically the Education and Workforce Equity Act. The Phillip Jackson Freedom Schools Network will enhance the historic and monumental work of the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus. And so as we continue to fight for our children's education, by creating a system that will provide the supplemental academic enrichment, civic engagement, and mentorship that we know are instrumental in the success of our children. I'm going to pause for a second. So Mackenzie, are you able to bring up the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mackenzie. And so here's the agenda. We're going to just do a high-level overview of the grant overview and eligibility and the application information. And then we'll go into a little bit more detail about the program background and description, funding information, as well as the reporting requirements, content informed of application submission, and the review criteria. So next slide. And so we'll go to the overview. Next slide, thank you. And so the goal of the Freedom Schools, and this Freedom School started in the 1960s, and it was to provide quality education for all students, particularly students of color, so that they can get the same educational opportunities as their white counterparts. And so with Freedom Schools, it's really about motivating students and getting them actively involved in civic engagement, and then of course empowering disenfranchised communities. And with the Freedom Schools, it continues to demonstrate a need for this and a proven benefit of civic engagement, you know, and all of what this program has been able to provide for African-American students as well as other students of color. Next slide. And so just a little bit about eligibility in terms of the applicants. And that's another reason why we pull together a curated group of organizations in our community. And so eligible applicants are public schools, public universities, public community colleges, nonprofit entities, and community-based organizations. And there are several of you here on the call. So again, thank you for joining us. And the reason why we wanted to have this information session, not only to demystify this process and help streamline it, but we also wanted to make sure we had select groups on the call here, because priority is going to be given to applicants who collaborate with other organizations. And so we want to make sure we have all the organizations that have been doing great work in our community, and this program aligns with the work that you're doing. So next slide. And then talking about eligibility and what in your application. And so most of you, or many of you on this call, you know that you have to have the state of Illinois GATA, and that is the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, in order to be qualified and eligible to apply for this. And so I'm not going to go through all of the steps that you have to do, but there's a hyperlink here. When we send you the presentation, you'll be able to click on the hyperlink and go to this page to find out more about GATA. But again, the great news is that many of you are already GATA certified, and so that's a plus. This should really streamline the process, because this is one step you will not have to go through. But if you are not GATA certified, this is what you will need to do. You will need to go on and complete the application process on the GATA web portal, and then go through the process of getting GATA certified. Next slide. And then also, in addition, applicants must also complete what is called the organizational risk assessment. And you go onto ISBE's website, and then again, there's a hyperlink to do that as well. And then we'll make sure you get the presentation. And then, so grant awards will not be executed until after the fiscal year 2022 ICQ assessment, and then the organizational risk assessment and the programmatic risk assessments are completed. So you want to go through all of that too. And then the next slide, so that's going to, great. And so in addition to that, as far as the eligibility requirements, you must be registered through the DUNS system, and that's Duns and Bradstreet Universal Numbering System. And again, we have a hyperlink on here. You can go on there. Many of you have your DUNS number already. That's a plus, as well as the System for Awards Management, or SAM. And you go to the sam.gov if you don't have that already, if you're not in a system. And it's pretty straightforward when you go on, and it shouldn't take too much time. But many of you who have had Illinois state grants probably are already in the system. So thank you. Next slide. And again, so applicants will need to use their region, county, district type, or RCDT code when applying. And again, there's a hyperlink provided where you can go on and make sure you verify that. And again, so more hyperlinks to show you how to do that. If you have any technical issues, there will be information from a contact person. And also, I want to mention up front too, that if you have any issues once you work on your application, we have a technical group from ISBE. You would just simply contact my office. We will get you in touch with, or Representative Mayfield's office, and we'll get you in touch with the ISBE technical team, and they can help you navigate the technical process. Next slide. And so, as I mentioned before, the first ever state funded program, there is $17 million in funding that's available, and it's critically important that for organizations in our community to take advantage of this funding, because you're doing great work already in this space, and we can certainly use Freedom Schools, the programs in our district. There's going to be about 45 grants awarded at $350,000 each. And so the grant period will not start before May 2nd in terms of when they'll start working through the system and reviewing and scoring and approving, but it will end August 31st. So once you get the funding, it'll end the 31st of 2023. And there's opportunities, and I believe we're going to talk about this a little bit down the few slides down when Representative Mayfield joins us. But there's an opportunity for additional funding through the next years or so once you are approved. So we can talk about that a little later. So next slide. So proposals for the Freedom Schools have to be submitted no later than 4:30 p.m. on Friday, April 29th, 2022. And we know this is very short notice, and that's why we wanted to have an information session, and again, to help streamline this process, answer any questions. But it is doable. And again, there is opportunities for technical assistance if you have a need for that, or through ISB. And of course, Representative Mayfield and my team, we will be happy to answer any questions and work with you, because again, it is our priority that organizations in the 30th district are awarded these Freedom Schools grants. And so again, you'll submit it electronically. And again, you're going to get a copy of this presentation with all of the hyperlinks. You'll have the contact at ISB where you need to send it to electronically, or if you're mailing it in, the address where you will mail that. But if you can send it electronically, that would be the best bet. And you want to scan all your documents for your application in one PDF file and send it electronically. But again, if you prefer mailing it, you can do that as well. And there is an address provided for you where you need to mail that to. And again, we will send that to you, the presentation, shortly after our session today. Next slide. So successful applicants will find out about if you have been awarded for this successful applicant approximately 90 days after the deadline. So that's after April 29th. And one of the things we want to highlight is, most of you know this because if you received a grant from the state of Illinois, once you get that notice, of award, this is not authorization to begin performance or expenditures. And so just wait until you receive the follow-up email and with the next steps and for finalizing the grant. And so, keep in mind, and again, you know this from other grant programs, that monies that's spent prior to the programmatic approval, they'll be done so at your risk. So in other words, just wait till you get the final approval, letter, and then get the program started. But you can, of course, behind the scenes, work on the infrastructure of the project and getting that going. So we just wanted to call that to your attention. Next slide, please. So we'll go to the next one, too. And so the Freedom Schools represent a long tradition of engaged citizenship and personal empowerment and academic experience. And so the purpose of the Freedom Schools, and again, started in the 1960s, and the purpose of this grant is to establish Freedom School Network in the state of Illinois. And this is to supplement the learning that's taking place in public schools by creating this program, and with the goal of improving the odds of children who are in need and children who have experienced disinvestment for many years. Another thing I want to add, and I think I mentioned this, that it is the first ever state-funded Freedom Schools, and I'm just really excited about that. And this is going to assist with the additional supplemental support that we know our children need in our district. And again, $17 million, and I want to make sure that several organizations in our district receive this funding. Thank you. Want to move to the next slide? Thank you. So the way that the Freedom School programs operate, it has to be at least a 6-week summer program and or a program during the school year that provides out of school learning opportunities that may include, again, before school, after school, or even on the weekend. And we do know that some schools, enrichment schools that provide that supplemental education for students typically are on the weekend as well. But in this case, you can do it before school, after school, or even in the summer. So to kickstart the learning even before the school year. And then so teachers in the Freedom Schools who are leading this effort, they must be local from the community. And this is a plus, you know, with an emphasis on historically disadvantaged youth, including African-American students and other students of color. And so this will provide access to summer jobs and teaching experiences. And again, just serves as a long-term pipeline to educational careers and hiring for minority educators in public schools. And these individuals are elevated as content experts and community leaders. And so Freedom School students have access to both mentorship and equitable educational resources. Next slide, please. And so some of the programs specifications, so Freedom Schools provide activities and support, again, using research-based and multicultural curriculum for disenfranchised communities. And this is critically important because we know there is a learning loss and an opportunity gap as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so by expanding the teaching of African-American history and other histories of color and developing leadership skills and providing an understanding of the tenets of the civil rights movement. And that's the focus of this program. Again, supplemental enrichment and support. Next slide, please. And just here's just a few of the program objectives. So the programs provide intentionally and imaginatively employs strategies that will focus on, I mentioned civic engagement a few times, but also literacy, racial justice and equity, and transparency, building trusting relationships, self-determination and governance. And we know this is really important as we work through a lot of the social emotional learnings. And then building on community strength and community wisdom. And that's why this is grassroots, working with community organizations that already have boots on the ground in the trenches doing this work. And so that's really important too. And then just utilizing data and best practice and evidence and leadership skills, helping to hone the leadership skills and working collaboratively in a reflective learning culture with a whole child approach to education. Next slide, please. And then just more on some of the program objectives. And so the program should provide the following, just engaging and culturally relevant and, you know, a challenging curricula, but also one where the kids will embrace and learn. It's a high quality teaching. And it also important with the wraparound supports and opportunities that we know are important in our communities. And then a positive discipline practice, such as restorative justice. And, you know, and that's something important in our community and district as well. And leadership opportunities. These are our emerging leaders. And we want to make sure we continue to hone their leadership skills and provide the right mentorship, the right examples to continue with their development and honing their leadership skills. I'm glad to announce that Representative Mayfield has joined us, and she will take over from here. Hi, Representative Mayfield.
Sorry, there we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator Johnson, for setting this up. I think this is just an amazing opportunity to get this information out to the community regarding this wonderful program, these freedom schools that we are doing. So if you don't mind, next slide, please. All right, we're going to start with performance measures. Every program, we passed GATA, which is, our Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. And part of that is asking for performance measures. We're not just giving out free money. We're asking that, that you're able to demonstrate that you effectively use those dollars to produce something. And that's where your performance measures come in. When you set your goals, you're going to set your performance measures. These have already been preset within this particular grant. And what we're asking for is 10% proficiency in growth. You're going to do a pre-assessment and then a post-assessment. It is a school, so yes, you're going to have some tests. You're going to assess those students. We want to know where they are when they came in and where they are when they leave to determine the effectiveness of this program, to say, and if it is very effective, we can do this more than once, we can keep this going. And that's always our goal. We also have a performance measure that deals with parent and community engagement. We want to make sure that you are connecting with the community, that there are community partnerships, and that you're engaging the parent. We know that engaged parents, equal engaged students. Next slide. Performance targets, 2.5 increase in proficiency and growth over literacy. So again, that's your pre and your post assessments. And then again, we're looking at that 2.5% higher for participant engagement over participant engagements for both parents and community. So we're definitely going to be hoping that you reach out and get those parents involved and that you establish those community partnerships. Next slide. Performance standards. 5% increase in proficiency and growth in literacy and other program objectives for program participants. Again, pre and post assessment test. And then they're asking for a 5% engagement of parents on this particular one. So I think the question that you're going to have to ask ISB, because that's a bit of a discrepancy if they're asking for a performance measure of 2.5% and then they're increasing that to 5% on this particular slide. So they need to be a little bit more specific in where they want that 2.5 versus the 5%. And this gives you an opportunity to engage with the Illinois State Board of Education, ISB, and to have these conversations regarding your goals and what it is that you're trying to achieve with your particular program. Next slide. All right, deliverables. We start talking about goals. That's your deliverables. So what things that are going to be expected of you? You're going to have to attend ISB sponsored workshops and trainings. They will be provided as part of your granting process. They will also be on the ISB website if you'd like to take a look ahead of time. Completion of an annual grant periodic performance report. That is your end of grant performance report that basically states what it is you did, how you did it, and how well you performed. And then the administration of those pre and post assessment programs for your program participants. Next slide. All right, let's talk about funding. All grants dispersed are administered through legislation that was recently signed into law. Yes, 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 thank you for that. The state and federal grant administration policy, there's fiscal requirements. All of this is available online at gata.org, or you can just go on ISB's website. They're going to have all of this information. You can pull up all the accounting requirements, the procedures, processes. Everything is available online for you to look at. Next slide. Successful applicants may reapply via continuing application for up to 2 additional years. What does that mean? That means that if you are granted a successful application your first year and that you do well on your pre and post assessments, you will have the opportunity to continue your program for up to 2 additional years without going through the grant process all over again, which is really, really good in order to have that continuity in your program and to keep that level of success with your students. Cost sharing or cost matching is acceptable but not required, which means that you don't, for every dollar, you don't have to put up a dollar of your own. That is good. That means that you can do totally grant funding to run your program. Next slide. Reporting requirements, periodic financial reports, minimum of quarterly. I recommend monthly. That way you're on top of your dollars at all times. If you don't have QuickBooks, I strongly encourage you to invest in QuickBooks or to have an accountant with QuickBooks so that you can have that monthly reporting just to make sure that you're on track where you're supposed to be with your financials. You don't ever want to mess up with your financials on a state grant and end up on the do not pay list because it affects all future grants. So even though it says minimum of quarterly, I would definitely recommend that you're reevaluating your financials on a monthly basis. Programmatic requirements for reporting, those should be, it says minimally annually. Again, I would turn in your program reports at the same time that you turn in your financial reports. The last thing you want to do is get to the end of your grant and then to find out that you did not obtain the correct data, you weren't tracking the right information, and then have to go back and connect with those children, those parents to get that information. Again, you want to do it monthly just to make sure you're on par. Next slide. Financial reporting periods. These are your beginning and ending dates. It's pretty self-explanatory. Keep track, even if ISB doesn't want them every month, you should still reconcile every month. Next slide. All right. Please forgive me, I have two dogs. ISB provided attachment forms for you in order for you to apply. Applications must be submitted in the form outlined on pages 7 and 8 of the RFP. Excuse me. A complete application will include all required components and signatures. Make sure that you complete every line of the application. If it's not applicable, please put in there NA for non-applicable. Don't leave anything blank. You want to fill out the entire form. Next slide. All right. Applicants should address all the following areas. The need, what is the need? Why are you doing this? You know, what population are you trying to serve? How are you going to design that program to meet the needs of that targeted population? What instruction are you going to provide to, you know, that goes in coincides with that program design and the need for the community? And then your community connection, you're looking at who are your community partners going to be to help you to be successful in this. Program narrative is huge, huge, huge. I can't stress this enough. This is the who, what, how, where, and when section. You want to make sure that you are addressing that. Have somebody review it before you submit it, and then ask them, did I address, you know, all of the W's and the H's, you know, the who, what, where, when, and how we're going to do this for this particular program. There are rubric pages on 10 and 11 of the RFP for details. And the information is out there. Next slide. Oh, here we go. The need. This just provides more detail on what it is that they're asking for. You're going to summarize the need by describing the process that you're going to use, availability of resources, data, your demographics, you know, who are you targeting? We talked about this. This is right here. Everything that you're seeing here for need. This is the who, how, where, when, and what. Excuse me. Next slide. I am so sorry. The program design, this right here talks about the how. This is how you're going to do it. It's going to include your operation, your hours, the details for student improvement academics, and how you're going to reach out to them and how they're going to be successful. This is your how screen, and it provides data on, you know, how to get to the, if you can answer these questions here, or if you can, you know, provide the detail that they're looking for, you will be able to effectively address the how. Next screen. Instruction. Now, this is for your teachers. You know, how are you going to recruit your teachers? How are you going to retain your teachers? Again, keep in mind, this is a grant program. You're granted for the first year, and provided upon your success for that first year will determine if you have a second or third year. So when you're trying to obtain these teachers, explaining to them that this is a grant program that may or may not expire based upon, performance, and that it does conclude after 3 years, will have to be factored into your recruitment and your retention for those teachers. You want to describe that particular curriculum that's going to be provided, ensuring that it's engaging, culturally relevant, and that it will be challenging. Those pre and post assessment exams will also be included in here. Next slide, please. All right, let's see. Next slide. Community connections. You want to talk about community engagement activities. What are you going to do with these kids? Are you just going to lock them in a classroom? Are you going to take them out? And then how does that transfer? How does that education of you doing field trips or anything like that transfer back to the education and that curriculum that you just designed? How are you going to engage the parents? How are you going to engage the community to bring them into what it is that you're trying to do? Number one, we're looking to advance our students, but how are we going to engage our parents and our community to do that? Who are going to be our community partners? Those may be the individuals that you're either bringing in or taking our children out to view them in their workplace, that kind of thing. How will your students receive access to mentors? Will they have mentors on site? Are you going to partner with a mentoring program? All of that would be listed up in there. I know that a lot of sororities and fraternities offer mentoring, so that may be an option to you. There are other nonprofit organizations that do mentoring as well, church and other community organizations. So you want to look at that. And then you're going to provide a detailed plan that centers around the goal of supporting the family well-being and the child's development. We're looking at the whole child concept here in that particular bullet point. Next slide. All right, application and review selection. ISB is required to design and execute a merit-based review and selection process for the applications, and then selection will be based upon overall quality of the application. This is the heart of that who, what, where, when, and how. If you have not thoroughly addressed those questions, it will affect your score. Having done grant reviews myself, I can tell you that the narrative is huge. You cannot explain in your narrative what it is you're trying to do, what the demographic is, how you're going to reach them, how your program is going to advance them, take them to the next level, then you're not going to receive a grant. This is critical in that grant application review and selection process. The who, what, where, when, and how. And again, ask somebody else to read it. Maybe ask 2 or 3 people, and then effectively ask them, did I address, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, who I'm targeting, where we're going to do this at. You have to be able to address all those questions. Next slide. Okay, they're going to look at the need, stakeholders, facts, evidence, data. There is so much data out there on both the state board website, on the internet, just for your different communities. There is a ton of data. Use that data. We're not asking you to reinvent the wheel. Use the data that's already out there, but use it to demonstrate how you're going to have an effective program. They're going to be looking for the quality of the program that you design, the capacity, how many, your ability to execute effectively, how those grant dollars are going to be spent, in the community, how much is going toward administration versus how much is actually going toward, child development. All of that will be considered in your application process. Next slide. Priority. Okay, 20 points will be given to joint applications. So what does that mean? Go out there and find a partner. Don't try to do it yourself, because you want those full 20 points. Every point counts in the application process. Can't stress that enough. There's a lot of good community organizations that are out here that are doing a lot of the work. So again, don't reinvent the wheel. Find others that are doing what it is that you want to do. They may be doing one aspect better. Those are the people that you want to look for. The more community partners you have, the better your program will be. This can be designed at the bottom of the program summary of the RFP, and then just attach the forms. It doesn't hurt to attach letters from those organizations stating that you are partnering with them. Next slide. Here's your application process from 0 to 5. Proposal requirements are absent. Proposal provides very few details. Number 2, somewhat limited, unclear, or lacks enough evidence to meet the project outcomes. Again, that means that your data, your narrative, you did not address the who, what, where, when, and how. Moderate says that you did address it, but it could have been flushed out more. You could have provided more detail. You could have provided more data. Don't be afraid to write more than one paragraph. Put that information out there. Strong and very strong says that you have a good proposal, that you know what it is that you want to do. You know how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, when you're going to do it. You're addressing everything, to hit those 4s and 5s. So, and please, please, please proofread. Have somebody else proofread, the old trick, reading your document backwards to make sure you didn't misspell anything. And just know that there, and there are 3 different words, not one. And proofread, unfortunately, does not distinguish between those. Next slide. Okay. Sections 1, the need. This is the need for the community. Why do we need this Freedom School in this particular area? Data, data, data. I can't express that enough. The quality of your application, did you effectively define what it is that you want to do, how you're going to do it, the capacity, who are you trying to reach, how many are you going to serve, who are you going to partner with in your community, and then evaluation, pre and post test assessments, how are you going to determine the effectiveness of what it is that you're trying to do. Obviously, you want to get as close to that 100 points as possible. Next slide. Okay, follow the notification, reviewer comments. Oh, they get to give you. Now this is good because I know there are a lot of grants out there where you don't get the reviewer comments. Hopefully they will provide them back to you so that you will know, particularly if you did not receive the grant, what areas you were deficit in, so that when you apply for your next grant, you can strengthen those. Normally it'll be because you did not effectively address the who, what, where, when, and how. So it's good that you will be receiving feedback here that you normally would not have gotten from other agencies. So this is the contact information to get that back. And even if you were, even if you are successful, you still want to ask for those comments because you always want to write a strong grant. Next slide. Okay, thank you so much. Here's the contact information at ISB so that you can reach out. There's a bunch of frequently asked questions that are already posted on the ISB webpage. I want to again thank Senator Johnson for putting this together. I hope this was educational and helpful for everyone that is viewing this. This was just a great thing. Senator Johnson, are you still there? Would you like to close us out?
Yes, I am, and we'll close out the presentation as well. But thank you, Representative Mayfield. You did an amazing job. I also want to thank our dynamic staff and team. We have Cherie on the communication side, Mackenzie, Dylan, and Mies. Thank you all so much. That's Representative Mayfield and their team. So thank you. We appreciate it. And I thank all of you for tuning in. And one of the things I want to leave you with is that you don't have to worry about all of these details because you will get a copy of the presentation. Also, the presentation has hyperlinks and you'll be able to click on all of those hyperlinks where Representative Mayfield and I said RFP and these other documents. You just click onto that and you really want to read through the RFP because when Representative Mayfield was talking about the who, what, and when, and why, and all of that, the RFP gives you the blueprint for what you need to include in your proposals. And so that's great to do that. And remember, as Representative Mayfield highlighted, you want very strong proposals. So look at what that rubric says and how you get to a very strong proposal. And then really what's important, and the reason why we reached out to all of you, is that it is critically important to collaborate. And so we have great people in our community. As I said early on, and as Representative Mayfield said, don't reinvent the wheel. You want to collaborate so that you can get a really strong, very strong proposal by April 29th. And a good example of that, you know, you have Dr. Sylvia from the African American Museum at the England Manor. I mean, she has the African American history and other cultural history. And then you have, you know, BAM for the Mind that's already doing this work, boots on the ground. You have the Daisy Center and other organizations that's doing this. You have our public schools, we have all our school districts, and we have other really great nonprofit organizations that's doing this. We have the Waukegan Township, we have the Legacy, we have just a host of other organizations. So partner, collaborate, and we can even help you too. And if we get permission from everyone who signed up, you'll see the list of attendees. And please feel free to reach out to either Representative Mayfield or to my office, and we can help you as well. We'd be happy to answer any questions. So Representative Mayfield, anything else you would like to add before? Oh, we can accept questions. So if you want to type in the chat, or if you want to send questions, and then our team will read the questions, and Representative Mayfield and I will be happy to answer any of your questions. I'll turn it back over to you, Representative Mayfield.
Again, just thank you so much. And yes, I'm happy to address any questions. Again, copies of this slideshow will be available. The senator has been nice enough to record this so we can share the recording of it as well. But most of the information that you're looking for will be on the State Board of Education's website. You know, writing a great proposal is step one. And this is just a good opportunity for other grants as well. If you, that same narrative, you can use more than once, you know, to help you address, you know, other needs in the community. So get to writing, proofread, proofread, proofread.
That's right, proofread. Thank you, Representative Mayfield. We got a question if this deck is available for us, and absolutely, yes, it is. We will send it to you. If you register for the presentation, if you're on this call, you will definitely get a copy of the presentation emailed to you. And then remember, the presentation has hyperlinks. You'll be able to call up the RFP and get the additional information, again, with the blueprint for how your proposal should follow. And you want to follow the RFP, the blueprint, each step of the way. And then Representative Mayfield, you gave some amazing tips of how to prepare a very strong proposal. So follow those tips and just, again, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. We have amazing organizations, and it's critically important to Representative Mayfield and me that we have several organizations in our district awarded, you know, with the Freedom School Grant. So yes, and let's see, I think we have another question. Oh, no, I'm trying to look at it here, see if we have a question here. I think someone is asking about, we will also, yes, we're going to also publish this recorded session on our Facebook pages. And again, we are happy to answer any questions. You can follow up with our office, our team, anytime after this if you have other questions. If you feel you need any help with identifying partners, Representative Mayfield and I, we will be happy to guide you on that as well. Any other questions? I'm looking for our team who are behind the scenes, our amazing team. Again, Mackenzie, Cherie, Dylan, and me behind the scenes. Any questions?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm going to wait a few minutes, see if we have any other questions. I don't see any other questions. So only thing I would like to add before we close out is that, you know, please stay tuned. Representative Mayfield will have other programs in the future. But again, you know, stay in touch. We know it's a very, very, you know, short turnaround to get this very strong proposal together, but we know you can do it. We're here to offer any assistance. Again, reach out to other organizations in the community, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. And we're here every step of the way to offer any assistance. So with that, I will say have a wonderful rest of the day. And Representative Mayfield, anything else you would like to add?
No, thank you everybody for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining
Enjoy the rest
us.
of your day.
Bye.